Hey, what's up? Today we are going to be diving into some pro tips on how to mount your 360 camera to get the absolute best stitch for your 360 content. So what is stitching? It's basically the footage from the two lenses being merged into one file. So why is mounting so important to stitching? The camera software, along with either the software of the mobile app or the desktop app, have algorithms in them to take the footage from the two lenses, or the two hemispheres, and stitch them together. When designing the camera, the engineers tuned these algorithms, assuming that the mounting was always going to be from this bottom point of the camera in the center, also known as the nadir. It's this same algorithm that's designed to erase the pole in the shot. This is an underwater dome for 360 cameras, but it also doubles as a great visual representation for the two lenses, or hemispheres, and where the stitch line occurs. They made this dome to hide the seam in its stitch line. Erases the pole. There is an exception with the GoPro app though. If you're looking at the live preview, the stitch will be off. That's to be expected. Stitching happens post encoding or after the file has been saved, so don't worry if you see the stitch off in the live preview of the app. So here are 10 pro tips and best practices to get the absolute best stitch out of your 360 camera. Number 1, keep your lenses safe and clean. These caps that come with the camera are extremely valuable. These lenses on 360 cameras stick out further than normal cameras and are super prone to getting scratched and dinged with people putting them down. So keep those caps on when not in use, and always travel with a lens cloth. Wipe that smudge off to make sure that there's no fingerprints or anything on that lens before you start recording. Number 2, mount your camera straight. You want your camera to be straight up and down, not bent or crooked on the mount at all, and right above that mounting point so that the pole is right in the nadir of the shot. I've said it before, but the nadir is the very bottom center point of the camera, kind of that 0 point on that third axis. So number 3, having a proper SD card. Your SD card's read and write speed definitely matter. You'll need a class 10 UHS 2 or UHS 3 SD card to experience less errors. I'll put a link in the description to the official list that GoPro recommends for SD cards. Number 4, format your SD card. Not only does formatting your SD card erase everything, but it's like a handshake between the SD card and the camera. It sets up the file structure and gets that SD card ready to go, working perfectly with your camera to ensure everything will be smooth when you want to record. Number 5, keep your action away from that stitch line. If I'm filming here, I want to be in front of a lens, not in front of the stitch line. Number 6, and this might be the most important takeaway of the whole video, it's the length of the pole. The longer the pole, the better.
That's what she said.
GoPro recommends at least 20 centimeters, which is right around 8 inches, but the longer the better. The longer the stitch distance, the cleaner that stitch will be. Number 7, use a pole that's thin and sleek. You don't want a pole that has a lot of locking mechanisms or junk down the length of the pole. You want it to be thin and sleek all the way down to your hand. The Max Grip is GoPro's 360 specific mount, and it does a great job at erasing the pole, but you can see in this example the handle is still in the shot. A lot of people are leaning towards these 270 Pro poles, which I'll put a link down in the description too. These have virtually no bumps or kinks down the entire pole. It's super sleek but it also has the trade-off of being a little flimsy. I know there are a ton of different poles out there on the market for you to choose from, so I'm doing a video in parallel to this one, highlighting the advantages and disadvantages of a bunch of different poles that are used in the industry. All right, so number 8, find yourself a pole that has a perfect nadir. And by that, I mean you want to find a pole that puts the center of the camera right over the center of the tube of the pole. This will make a lot more sense when you start exporting your footage, but some poles have an offset, leaning your camera forward or backward to one side or the other. You want to make sure that those mounting fingers of the camera are in the direct center of the tube of the pole, or in the center of the nadir. Number 9, test an export of your mounting angle before committing to it. There's a lot of hobbyists out there, but some people do this professionally, and before you commit to a client, you probably want to test your workflow, whether that's mobile or from the desktop, to see if your camera is mounted correctly and the mount or the pole that you're using is actually the correct fit for your need. Last but not least, this really isn't a mounting tip, but it is a best practice. Check your settings. Go through the camera and make sure all of your settings are exactly how you want them to be able to get that footage that you're looking for. Happens to the best of us. We think we have the settings correct out in the field, and then once we go review the footage on our computer, there was that one setting that was off, just throwing off your entire production. So I know for the examples in this video, I was using a pole, but if you're ever mounting to your body or your helmet or any other mounting scenario, the same rules apply. So just make sure you have plenty of distance and you're aware of that nadir, and test your footage, double check your settings. It's pretty simple. So the software in the camera, the mobile app, and the desktop editing software are constantly being updated by the engineers. So to be sure that you have the best experience with the best, cleanest stitch, you want to make sure you're always up to date. I'll go ahead and add links in the description for you to download all of those. So that does it for me. Hopefully you found this video useful. Until next time, peace.